DeShaun Foster and UCLA, their stock is rising with what they've done in the transfer portal. What do I mean?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And here we are. If you're tuning in right away when I drop this podcast or a day or two after, this is the last day of April in 2025. Isn't this nuts? Isn't this nuts? What's changed from literally April 1st to the 30th? For both the basketball and the football teams. So I just kind of put this month in perspective, how it's been great, for this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for all the support. But just from what's happened from a UCLA perspective, right? We've seen on the women's side so many portal entries. For the men's side, we've seen some surprising portal entries, right? For Iamaleava, technically, the news broke the day before, but then we heard the demands potentially. Most importantly, he committed to Michigan, regardless of all that crazy nonsense, everything. He committed to Michigan. And that was after UCLA had already gotten Donovan Dent in the end of March. We saw Iamaleava turn to Michigan. And now we see UCLA turn around and get quite a few commitments to turn it into, this is a team that is now as rated as high as number 4. A 4 seed by Joe Lunardi, but a number 4 team in the country. Then you go to UCLA football, who comes around and is the 4th best team in the portal, according to Rivals, with what they brought in their transfer portal rankings. DeShaun Foster goes with the crazy story, with the crazy nonsense surrounding the situation between the Iamaleavas and Tennessee. And the next thing you know, the top-rated prospect and the top quarterback in the portal coming to UCLA. They bring in a Jada Thomas. The Bruins have done spring portal work that puts what was their winter class just jumps and skyrockets to the top of the rankings, all in the span of a couple weeks. And who knows, they might not even be done. There's still a couple of players heading to the portal. Even though it closed on Friday, it's now slowly making its way through, the database, right? If it's a Friday night or Saturday morning entry, whatever it was, and it's slowly trickling as to, who's in the portal. I think UCLA officially lost a 4th quarterback. I think Nick Billups was the next UCLA QB. So that emphasizes the need for UCLA to have depth and injury-free quarterback play this year. That's huge because the Bruins have not had a quarterback season in the last few years. I think prior to DTR, even prior to that, without a quarterback getting hurt, you need a backup quarterback. Generally, in NFL and college football, you need a quarterback to play well, which is what DeShaun Foster's going to need from his transfer QB, the expected starter, Nico Iamaleava. So what do I mean that the stock is rising? A lot of it with the height with Nico. A lot of it you bring in with Jada Thomas at the running back position with what UCLA's done in the portal. Last year, in the winter, and now in the spring, UCLA, their win total, according to FanDuel, jumped from 4.5 to 5.5. That's not something that's to be taken lightly. You go from, UCLA's a 4-8 team to, if you're betting high, if you're like this UCLA team is going to do something, a 6-win, 7-win season, of course, that's not going to break down the doors to any playoff opportunity. But you're like, wait a minute. That's the difference between 3-9, 4-8, the jokes last year, to, they went from 5-7, and they're rising into a team that could play in a good bowl game in 2025 or in the 2026 calendar year. In just the span of a few weeks of portaling, of coaching overhauls, of DeShaun Foster's vision from a little over a year ago when he was given a tough spot to lead a program that he had already left. DeShaun Foster had already left to go be a running backs coach with the Raiders in Antonio Pierce. Isn't he happy in hindsight that didn't work out? Because Chip Kelly left, DeShaun Foster still has a job. He's the head coach, and he's got UCLA seemingly heading in the right direction. So I decided to look at what Rivals had rated for their teams last year in their transfer rankings in 2024, heading into the 2024 season. All right. Obviously, Colorado is going to lead those rankings, and they do points differently based on how many players you got, the ratings of those players. Colorado's average player was rated just above a 3-star in the transfer portal last year. They brought in 44 commits, a lot of 3 stars, a lot of 4 stars. And what the Buffaloes did was compete for a Big 12 title to the very last week of the season. They were in the contention in one of the most wide open leagues in the country. And they went from fun story to, they're pretty legitimate right now. And that's what the Buffs were in their first Big 12 season, and respected and even better in Deion's second season in Colorado. Isn't that nutty? That was the team that led the transfer portal rankings last year. Yeah, Mississippi. Okay, they brought in a 5-star, few 4 stars, quite a few 3 stars. Their average ranking is a little higher than what UCLA's is. 3.09 is what the Bruins have as the average player rated brought in by UCLA this offseason. Ole Miss, they're competitive. They were one of those teams at the SEC barking at the edge for a playoff spot. Texas A&M, they're 8-5, but they lost their last 3 games into the final week of the season. They were maybe in competition for an SEC championship spot against Texas. Louisville was rather competitive. Those are the top 4 teams in the transfer portal rankings. So teams rated this high, especially in this rivals rankings list, you're like, they were rising. And some of those with QB changes, with coaching changes, programs in year 1 or year 2 of rebuilds. And UCLA's in this weird spot where are they rebuilding or rebranding? And I want to say that they're more rebranding, right? 5 wins after a bowl campaign, after another bowl campaign with Chip Kelly. The rebuild was early Chip Kelly. Now they're rebranding and restocking, reshuffling, and relaunching. And here the Bruins are, hopefully getting a bowl season. Now, if you want to look at who at the 5th best transfer class in 2024, none other than a team with a similar star rating, Arizona State, a team that had a very low win-loss total or win total. I think, 4.5 maybe last year for Arizona State early in the season. Picked to finish near dead last, if not dead last in the Big 12. And they're the team that got to the playoff. It was a crazy football game away, crazy play away from making it to the next round, to the semifinal round on New Year's Day, and arguably the best day or the best game of New Year's Day of those playoff games. And you had Arizona State right there. A complete turnaround with Kenny Dillingham going from swinging gate year 1 to upset the Bruins at the Rose Bowl to, oh my goodness, this is what they've done. And those are just the top 5 teams in this portal rankings. UCLA has completely overhauled the secondary. They've gotten a lot more speed. They've gotten a new quarterback. The O-line is supposed to be revamped with what they've built internally, brought in via the portal. You mix in the skill position players that they've brought in, quite a few. Not as much of the tight end spot. Here, UCLA, though, I think they'll survive. A new coach, a new vision. The stock is rising. You should buy now if you didn't buy in already. Because, man, I go back and forth between uber optimistic and who knows. Obviously, who knows how the line is going to play offensive and defensive lines. But if a Kaika Malloy works his magic on defense, if Tino Sunseri is the guru and the whisperer, and you're only going to get him for a couple of years before he bounces to be a head coach somewhere else, if a year and 2, right? This could be a fun year where UCLA is that underrated, going to get a lot of buzz because Nico's on their team, that might get overhyped in the span of 3 weeks. If UCLA knocks off Utah week 1 and they get those other 2 non-conference games out of the way, go beat Northwestern in 5 weeks in, they're 4-0, 1-0 in Big Ten play, the complete opposite start from 2024. And you continue that hot stretch into 2025, where, UCLA, wait a minute, they got like 4 wins in their last 6 games, something crazy. And then you win those first 4. Next thing you know, you're like 8-2 in your last 10 if UCLA starts off hot. The stock is rising. DeShaun's got the vision. He's not loud, but his actions are and his statements are. And you might want to buy in because even the rest of these teams in this rankings list, hey, most of them in the top 10 were competitive, even in new conferences, even in new divisions. And they were respectable, I should say, in new landscapes, new places, maybe new coaches, new players. Obviously, the portal makes a big difference. But with so much conference realignment, we didn't know what it was going to look like in Big 12, ACC, Big 10, SEC play. And the teams who stockpiled and addressed their needs and were in year 1 to year 2 of coaching, a lot of those teams improved significantly, which is what makes it exciting for UCLA. Doesn't mean that they're going to go with 8-9 wins and make the playoff, but you show improvement in life of a culture, life of a program, then the fans will come in the Rose Bowl. And it'll be an entertaining season nonetheless. Rising in April, bringing it into May. Next, let's talk about the UCLA women's basketball transfer portal arms race. It's all about Gianna Kneepkens, but who else, another blue blood in the women's college basketball landscape, landed a huge player? Who? We'll tell you next on why it impacts UCLA on Locked On UCLA. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Whether you're dining out, the online shopping, okay, entertainment, ooh, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO that gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. And when you start using Monarch, you can realize how much you're spending on food delivery. What? Then you can budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Cruising on, second segment for Locked On UCLA, a transfer portal battle for the ages. UCLA is in on one of the top recruits, Gianna Kneepkens, who at this recording has not committed elsewhere. All right, I've been looking, I've been updating, I've been waiting to see where will Gianna Kneepkens play for UCLA. Would she be in the starting lineup? Would she come off the bench? Would that mean Gardner gets more minutes? Would that throw the likes of Dugalich to the bench? I don't know. I'm not really sure what Corey Close would. I think she'd be a significant addition to a team that's got Kiki Rice, Charlize Ledger-Walker, Lauren Betts, couple of incoming freshmen, a lot of spots to be filled for UCLA, and you could argue maybe more depth, more playable depth, more usable depth for Corey Close. Now, I was like, okay, most of these teams, you've seen South Carolina get a transfer, LSU get a transfer, TCU got Olivia Miles, seen USC get some big-time transfers, unfortunately, including Linda Jones. Tennessee, who was the last team, I believe, to beat UConn, got some big-time transfers, including Janiah Barker, so they're expected to do some big-time things. UCLA and UConn, you're like, oh, those are the only two teams that hasn't gotten any transfers, right? UConn finally went and got the post that they did not have last year. The former Wisconsin Badger, Sarah Williams, coming over from Brooklyn, New York, heading into her last season, I believe, in her career, had as many as 36 points in a game against Butler. That's who UConn's bringing, a 6'4" center, who against UCLA had 22 and 5, averaged 19 points and 9 rebounds. So UConn, remember their weakness last year was, quote-unquote weakness for the team that won the national championship, mind you, was that, okay, were they going to have the size to feast and battle with Lauren Betts in the post? Well, clearly their quickness, their guard play made a big difference, but Paige Beckers is gone. And while Sarah Strong and Fudd are going to make a lot of noise between those two, a dynamic duo, Alaufi, who had a great game against Lauren Betts in UCLA, you got Sarah Williams sitting there. Oh, that's a big post player to get. That's a big-time player for UConn. So now all these teams have brought in players, and UCLA this offseason has yet to make that big type of move. You bring in Gianna Kneepkens, you've got the scoring and the shooting to improve your roster from a year ago. You have the guard play to keep up with a team like UConn a season ago. Maybe that's not what UConn is going to transform into this year. But if you need a bigger guard, as someone who can shoot, who can score, that really can't replicate a 44% three-point shooter, you'll see Oklahoma. Oh, wow. That would be a big get. Texas has gotten a big player or two in the portal. UCLA has got to make this happen. Or they'd be the only team, one of the top teams in the country, that hasn't gotten a transfer. Now, you could technically go down and say, well, last year it was Charlize Ledger-Walker. Her injury missed this year, and she's just a redshirt transfer who UCLA has waited for a year to get, which is technically true. One of the best players in Washington State history, one of the better players in the Pac-12 in recent memory to bring the Cougars all the way to the NCAA tournament. But it's not like she shoots the three ball as well as Kneepkens and provides the same type of scoring dominance as the ball-oriented guard from the perimeter. Ledger-Walker can score in a multitude of ways. But Kneepkens, man, if you go look at the highlight tapes, watch her shoot and score in the Pac-12 and the Big 12, Utah's a different team. when she's scoring the basketball and was healthy. Still no word between if it's Oklahoma, if it's UCLA, if it's Texas or South Carolina. I would think with the schools that have been getting players like South Carolina or Texas, then you might see UCLA and Oklahoma be that final two. No official word there. I haven't seen any word from On3 about this recruitment. Nothing. It's just silence and waiting. Is UCLA the school to get Kneepkens, or is there just too much of a logjam at a certain spot on the wing to convince Kneepkens that I want to improve my WNBA stock and ball out at, say, Oklahoma? I hope she chooses UCLA. That would put them clear-cut number one again, like they were heading into the offseason. If not, the Bruins would tumble down outside the top 5, maybe top 4. I expect them to be number 1, but that's not what everybody's looking at with the improvements and the additions that the other teams in the country have made. And now that Sarah Williams, yes, Williams going to UConn is a huge deal. It makes UCLA the only team that has not brought in a transfer this year of significance. They've seen players leave, but nothing this year. And they have 2 of the best incoming freshmen, another international product, and Sienna Betts, who could add to what UCLA didn't have last year. They still need to replace what they've lost and add on the perimeter. Get better, get bigger, and even stronger. Next, we're talking UCLA baseball and softball. What did they do over the weekend? What do the Big Ten standings look like? Let's talk about it on Locked On UCLA. Wrapping things up today on the Locked On UCLA pod. What are we talking about? UCLA baseball and softball. Here we go. UCLA, the Bruins, they were at home against the Penn State Nittany Lions. The Bruin women, the softball team, went on the road again to Ann Arbor this time. Both teams with 4-game winning streaks. What does that mean? Let's talk softball first. They had a no-hitter thrown last Tuesday against Long Beach State. 9-0 run rule shortened game. And it was Jada Cecil who threw her first career no-hitter against Long Beach State out of the Big West. 9-0. And again, that happened about a week ago from this point. They go to Michigan. And I thought this would be a tough stretch for UCLA. You host Washington. You go to Eugene. You lose a tough 2 out of 3 in Eugene. Come back home and then have to fly to Ann Arbor for a Saturday through Monday series. I'm like, okay, that's weird. But UCLA wins a close game against Michigan Saturday, 5-3. Extra innings against Michigan on Sunday afternoon after trailing early 2-0. And then in a high-scoring Monday morning affair, UCLA down 5-1 after an inning, awakens their bats and survives to get the sweep against the Michigan Wolverines. Taking a look at the Big Ten standings, UCLA, unlikely that they get in first place. They are in second place by themselves, 16-3 in Big Ten play, 45-7 overall, just behind the Oregon Ducks, who are 45-5, dominant, 17-2 in Big Ten play with the head-to-head tiebreaker. Unlikely that UCLA can break that. And the one worry is, hey, can their pitching survive the tournaments? Maybe the Big Ten tournament, maybe a rematch against Oregon. Can UCLA win those close games? And they did it on the road against Michigan, huge. They got a fun battle against Northwestern, who's in tied for 3rd in the Big Ten this weekend at home. And then they go to West Lafayette for the Big Ten tournament. So only 2 technical regular season weekends left, depending on what you think about conference play. And the Bruins are in the nitty-gritty. The NCAA tournament's right around the corner. They've had their biggest battles early in the season. They didn't come through against Oregon, but can the Bruins win it all? It's all about the pitching in the circle, and so far, it'll be interesting when they play Northwestern and have to again travel east. Hence the story of being in the Big Ten. What did John Savage's team do? Well, the UCLA Bruins, 4-0 the last 4 games, sweeping Penn State, also some close games, 7-6 Friday night. This is what they did. Down 2-0 after the top of the first, came back, took the lead, had a lead heading into the 9th inning. Penn State came back in the 9th, took a 1-run lead after trailing 6-3 heading to the 9th inning. The Bruins scored 2 in the bottom of the 9th to win that game against Penn State. Won game 2, 9-1, and then scrapped and clawed and got their win 6-3 against Penn State on Sunday afternoon. A midweek win against LMU, and then this week, midweek game against LMU was just the other day. Now they go to Irvine, of all places, to take on USC. So after a stretch where UCLA played 5 straight games against top 10 teams. Went 1-4. Home against Oregon State, 3 at Oregon, 1 at UC Irvine. And in the latest college baseball top 10, Oregon, UC Irvine, and Oregon State are all top 10 teams. All teams in the running for hosting. And might even have jumped ahead of UCLA in some regards. Big West leaders, a team right behind UCLA in the Big Ten standings, but has a series win. And then Oregon State, who's got a head-to-head midweek win. UCLA has USC, Long Beach, and then they play Illinois, Northwestern, and then it's the Big Ten tournament. All right. So 1 trip to Champaign, a road trip to Irvine, and then we'll see what the Bruins look like, who are still in the running for first place in the Big Ten. They're 16-5. Iowa is 20-4. And you're like, why did they not play the same amount of games? Well, it's going to even up in just a moment because Iowa has the weekend off. They're going to play the likes of Oregon State. It's fun trying to keep track of every team that was or was not or is in the conferences now. Iowa plays at Washington. They do play at Oregon State later this weekend, but they do go to Washington this week. The Hawkeyes go to Washington, and I think that's a series where they lose 2 out of 3, maybe get swept. They've got this like voodoo magic going on right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Did lose a midweek to Illinois State the other day, and Illinois State is no UC Irvine, no Oregon State, where UCLA's played the last 2 weekends, and Iowa has not played anybody near the top 5 of the Big Ten standings, and they still have, I believe, Washington and Oregon on their schedule. 2 series, I think they might go 1-5 in combined. If that happens, UCLA, if they take care of business against teams near the bottom of the Big Ten, they can become the Big Ten tournament 1 seed, the Big Ten regular season champs, which would all but stamp their hosting bid and maybe get them a top 8 national seed and put them in line to host a super regional without even needing an upset to happen on another bracket. Still, the Bruins got to come away with some wins. Again, rivalry week against USC, who would love to burn the Bruins in the standings. If that happens, then UCLA will fall down and lose a chance to become in first place. If the Hawkeyes lose 2 this weekend and the Bruins win 2, that would mean both teams are tied in the loss column. Not in the wins, because they haven't played the same amount of games, but if UCLA wins the series at USC and Washington takes care of business against Iowa, they would be tied in the loss column in first place. And if Iowa loses all 3 and UCLA wins 2 out of 3, then it would come down to percentage points. I haven't done the math yet, but UCLA would clearly be in the thick of things with still games in hand against easier Big Ten opponents, while Iowa's schedule only gets tougher. Oregon State, Oregon, at Washington. I think the Bruins could leapfrog and win the inaugural Big Ten title in the regular season, but only time will tell. And we'll talk more about it as we jump into the NCAA tournament, maybe a super, maybe they get to Omaha. We'll talk all about it and more in the next Locked On UCLA podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.